Hey Isaiah, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Donna?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I feel like we have so many things we could talk about.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna give you a rundown of the things that have been like kind of like playing in my mind. All right, and you tell me
Ready.
which direction you want to go. So very demure, very mindful. Have you been hearing about this?
No.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then today is like 9/11.
Yeah.
And I think there's some interesting things we could probe in there. The other thing I was thinking about is last night there was the debate. And then this morning it was on the TV. And I said to my husband, I'm like, can we just turn this off? I can't. And so that was the other thing I was thinking about when you're just living your life, especially maybe you're in job search mode, maybe you're just in that career leadership mode where you're really thinking about your career and where you want to go. Is it okay to turn off and just say, not right now? I can't.
Well, I think you bring up a topic we haven't talked a lot about, which is how the newsification of everything, including people
Yeah.
in our space.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, these topics are great. Whatever you want to do first.
So the very demure, very mindful is a TikTok trend.
Okay.
And there is a lady out there who has gotten onto TikTok and she's doing this video where she's saying she puts on her makeup to go to work, very demure, very mindful. And I don't know why, but the internet apparently loves it. It even penetrated my carefully curated space in which I try. It's a TikTok video, it's an Instagram reel, but it's this woman saying, when I go to work, when I'm going to work, I'm very demure, I'm very mindful. When I put my makeup on, I'm very demure, very mindful. Now, the thing is, I think it's a joke. I don't think she is
Sure.
very demure or very mindful.
That's why it's
But
funny. I see.
yeah, it's kind of funny, I guess. But you know what? You know that we're gonna hear it more and more. It will penetrate your sphere as it penetrated mine. And the people who behave don't make history, right?
Believe, yeah. But I think you bring up another thing that's been on my mind, which is entertainment. So if you look at people that are in like our space, anybody's space, any business really, I think everything's been the newsification of everything, but also everything's been turned into entertainment. And those who do it well can really succeed in doing it. And I think AI is pushing this faster, right? Because I don't know if you remember this, like 10 years ago, like it was all about evergreen content. Like you want to write evergreen content because of like search engine optimization and people find it. And even people search for jobs. You want to write articles for your professional brand, evergreen, but AI can produce evergreen content. What AI can't do very as well is like entertain. So you
Yeah.
can get a video on TikTok or whatever of somebody being silly, saying words that just come together in the right way, some person with a big following sharing it, something happens and it's entertaining, and that people want to be entertained. You can go back thousands of years. It will always rise to the top. If you look at the trends on
Mhm.
social, on TV, like what's the most, usually a game of some kind
Yeah.
or entertainment of some kind. It's not.
Or it's the oversimplification of extremely in-depth information. And I think that's something that I'm seeing a lot of. It's like, "Oh, let me just tell you how to do something huge in a three-step type of
Yeah.
way." And
Yeah.
it is frustrating because I think it sets people up to this idea that, "Oh, anyone can do this. It's super simple. It's really easy. I can do it." And then you fail, and then they feel bad, and they wonder why things aren't working.
Yeah. There's a dark side to it.
Yeah, but, the one thing that I keep thinking, though, with this demure and mindful, it does lead me to 9/11, which in a really weird type of way. Alright, I know, this is crazy. So, when I hear this demure, this mindful, it's that responsible, it's doing the right thing. I remember on 9/11 reading how those who were in the 2nd tower, many of them were evacuated after the first strike. And then the 2nd tower, a lot of people went back up to get their work done. And so when the second hit occurred,
Jeez.
so I remember this. I remember that all of these people went back up to continue their work, to continue their workday. And I remember thinking, I would have done that too. Back then, I would have. I really think I would have. I was at that time in my life where it was like, yeah, there's a smoldering building right next door, but there's work to be done. I'm going back up. I'm going because I want to be the good worker. And it's, I hope, I don't know if we have. I know there's a lot of people working from home nowadays, but those who are going to going in,
Yeah.
I really hope that we've become much more healthier, where those people would have been like, you know what? I think I'm going home. There's a smoldering building next door. Let's not go back to work.
I want to say, there's this book, I think it's by Neil Strauss, called Emergency. There's this great book. Yeah, it is called Emergency by Neil Strauss. So this is essentially like the bystander effect. So you think, okay, this is just happening over here, and you compartmentalize like, okay, everything's fine for me. Like it's almost like you're watching it on the news, even though it's happening in the building next door. And it really comes down to just like vigilance. Like you see people when somebody faints, everybody just stands there and watches it because they think somebody else is handling it.
Yeah.
Somebody gets in an accident, everybody just drives by because they think somebody else is handling it. And then you have those few people that'll actually go, wait a sec, let me make a call. You see some weird behavior. Okay, let me make. So I think that's part of it too, like having awareness, mindfulness. I don't know how being commuter, I mean, not commuter, but yeah. I think it's really important because when I talk to people that are in the job market, for example, I'm like, are you even aware of what's happening contextually? Most of them have never read an economic report. They haven't gone to earnings calls of any of these companies. They're literally just like, where are the job boards? Okay, this looks like a good fit. Let me apply to this. They have no idea that half of the jobs posted aren't even there. They're not even filling them. They're ghost jobs. They have no idea if the company's doing well, not doing well.
Yeah.
And so they're very topical. And so I think what you're talking about almost in a sense too is mindfulness is one thing, but I also think being intellectual is another thing too. And if you are somewhat intellectual, and I think a lot of people listening to or watching this or consider themselves are, you can have the curse of knowledge and be oblivious to people who are not. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can go so deep that you can't even connect with people that haven't gone that deep, can't go or don't want to go that deep. So, how do you connect with what you're saying right now to somebody who's just looking topically at job boards or doesn't even have a great job, who is the person that just would prefer to watch social media videos? That's just what I always think of, is like, how do you get those people to go deeper? And then how do you get the people that are really deep to not lose sight of the topic?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I do think what you said is so true for so many people. I need a job. It's almost transactional. They're not thinking deeply. I remember back early in my last position as an employee, and I just shake my head at myself when I had gotten this role. Had I called the person I was replacing? Had I called some other people who had worked there and asked, is this a healthy environment? Is this a place where I want to plant myself and do good? Will I be supported? Is this a winnable situation? I took everything at face value. And I look back, and to me, it's a learning lesson. It's something that I do try to teach my clients, which is you got to do your due diligence. You got to, look at this strategically, and you got to prepare and make sure that if you're making this leap, it's the right one. Don't just trust blindly.
And I love that you brought this up, because I'll bring the reverse to that too. I think there's people that do too much due diligence. They don't start things, because I'm sure you can identify with this in a sense. Like, I always ask myself, what was I doing just even starting a business? Like, what was I even doing? Like, if I knew how much hard work it was, like, would I have even started? Like, you wouldn't even start. If you would have done all your due diligence on the failure, on the pain, or like right now in my life, would you stop everything that you're doing, give up the entire platform, the brand, start a other one from scratch without just going for it, which you probably did when we were younger, like I did. So I think there's also this part of blind kind of boldness, which really is needed to do it, because at the end of the day, you can do all the due diligence in the world, but you got to actually take action on it. But at the same time, there is knowledge is power. So you have to get the insights too. But what's the balance?
And hindsight's 20/20, right? Yep. So you look back and you're like, wait, I kind of tweaked some things. But when you're in the midst of that hurricane, you're never going to catch that line of thought. It's a really good point. So like, what is the answer? I don't know. It's striking that balance. It's doing enough, but don't get bogged down.
Counterbalance. Counterbalance is great. There's a great book by Robert Greene. It's either like the 40 Laws of Power or the 33 Strategies of War. He goes into so much detail on historical, from ancient Rome to Greece. Anyway, he talks about, in one of the chapters, I always remember, it talks about the counterbalance strategy in a very simple way, right? So if you're really afraid and nervous to do something, you have to counteract that being bold and thinking less. You just have to. And it actually balances out to where you're even and centered. And there's a great book too called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. It's about people during between the 2008 financial crisis. It's really about finance people and traders, how after they're winning and winning and winning, like even hormones, neurotransmitters, they're surging and they feel invincible. And that's when they make their biggest mistakes. So you have to counterbalance it with being even more cautious. I mean, Warren Buffett, right? Be fearful when others are confident, be confident when others are fearful, whatever the exact quote is. So I think it's all just about counterbalance. So you have, like, I work with a lot of people who are doctors, 15 degrees, great at studying, never had a job. And they're like, if I tell them, like, you really need to do some due diligence, like deep due diligence on these companies, they've already gone down that rabbit hole. I'm like, stop doing due diligence, get the job, you can correct later, like actually take some action, feel a sense of urgency. Whereas a totally another demographic of people, or a person in a different state emotionally, when they're just keep going into the wrong job over and over, you might be like, let's actually do some due diligence this time. Let's dig really deep, talk to everybody at the company so you don't make that same mistake. So it's all, at the end of the day, everybody's a sample size of one, really. So you got to kind of counterbalance.
Which actually then leads us to the third thing that I had mentioned, which is it okay to tune out? Like, is that a way of counterbalancing? Because there's a lot of stress.
Teach me how to do it.
It's hard. One of my favorite sales authors is Jeffrey Gitomer, and he wrote the little red sales book.
Yeah.
And he wrote a slew of books. I adore this man.
I got a couple of these right over here.
Yeah. I actually met him in person. I was pregnant. I was at the NSA, the National Speakers Association conference that they had back in Philadelphia. And when I saw him, and I went right over and I shook his hand and I started to cry because he had so impacted my life. And I was pregnant and like full of emotions.
Okay.
But at any rate, he's a wonderful man. But he had said in a number of his books, he says, you want to be great at sales? Tune out of everything that's going to suck you dry, that's going to stress you out. You are focused in on your career, on your sales, what you're doing, your quota, your people, your connections, your networking. That is your focus. Turn the TV off. And if you feel a need to turn the TV off, sit down and read a book about sales.
Singleness of focus.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. I mean, I read a book it's about these guys that won the gold medal for the rowing, the double, like two people in the rowing. It's called Assault on Lake Casitas, I think it's called. Anyway, I was in grad school and I read it. The whole book's about the singleness of focus that these Olympians have, where they're just like every day, that's it. And they talk about how it's so free. Like, it's so freeing to be able to focus just on one simple thing and to let everything else fall away. And when you do that, it's the only way you can hold all these puzzle pieces together that need to be held together for some great accomplishment. Because if you don't have that singleness of focus, any puzzle that's worthwhile or beautiful, you're not going to be able to hold it together.
And when you say this, I'm thinking of business. I'm thinking of my business. I'm thinking of your business, your company. I think in the early days when I was first starting, I had that singularity of thought. It was absolutely, how do I build this? How do I build the brand? How do I build the business? How do I create my methodologies? How do I completely just consume it, just be part of it totally? It gets harder, doesn't it?
Sure.
It gets harder as you achieve that, but then you have to pull away because life does rear its head.
It changes. You have the puzzle changes, right? So you're going to pull in, you have a different picture that you're holding together. It's always a good lesson. And there's always a counter side to that too, because as people, it doesn't matter if you're looking for a job, you're trying to get any goal today, business owner, you have to market things, whether you're marketing yourself, a business, whatever. So you have to get people's attention. And then, so we're advocating for you have to be the person that is able to eliminate distractions, but then you're in reality trying to distract other people and become really good at that on your stuff, which helps them. It's got to be the right person. So and this is what I meant by the newsification of everything. You see a lot of people in our space, they're basically becoming, because evergreen content's taken care of by AI, everybody comments on the news now. Like, everybody's doing the news. Everybody is, or whatever these companies are, even people, any sort of influencer, it's all news, because that's the stuff that changes every day. That's how you keep people engaged. That's how you get them. And so they're all becoming a curator of news for their specialty, right? It's it's a constant stream of opinion pieces for the news, which is very interesting to me. And there's so much of it. And this is why it's so hard, back to your point, to not be distracted.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just turn off the TV now. Like if you're going on to TikTok or social to do stuff, to look for a job or to do stuff for your business, it's all there. And it's not just stuff that's like, okay, here's like this evergreen content that I can go back to. It's like, this is happening right now. So there's urgency, like, hey, this is happening today. It's happening
Yeah.
tonight. And then you're hearing it from all these other influencers that you're following on purpose.
Is that newsworthy? Is
No.
it going to lend you a better life? Is it going to make you have better decisions? I think we do have to become choosy at what we consume.
Sure.
And I think we do have to decide how we want to dial in or dial
Yeah.
out. And I will tell you this, my phone was thrown. It was dropped.
Okay.
It broke. Those 5 days without my phone were glorious.
Not stressful at all?
Glorious.
Stressful at all?
No, because when I needed it, I went to my computer, I went to the laptop, but it wasn't constantly chirping at me. And I do think it takes a toll when it's constantly chirping.
I like this idea of like a phone fast because you can have basically all your apps can be on your computer now. So maybe it wasn't possible a while ago with the phone. And then most people are like, what about emergencies? Okay. I mean, look, when I was a kid, like you'd run out all day, you didn't have a phone for emergencies. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out, but you could put like a spare phone in the car or something, right? Just in case. But I really like that idea. You know, most people will have multiple computers in their house at this point. I mean, a lot of people do. But you
Google
still
Home
need
devices, Alexas, they're all over the
so
place.
many, yeah. So if you just said, I'm going to have, or, I also like this, I heard about this too, like putting all devices in one room, having a device room, and then every other room doesn't have it because you can walk over to that room.
Yeah.
Because that's really the only way to, I think, control focus at the level that you're talking about. And it can free you up for a lot of things. I recently installed an app, Rescue Time, on all of my devices, and it just shows you where you put all your time. And it is shocking how much time can add up just, checking the news for 2 minutes, a handful of times a day while you're waiting in line or while you're doing something else because you feel like you have to, rather than, and I try to put, it's a hard habit to break. Like I try to put like blogs or like books on my phone instead. And I'm like, go to this instead.
Yeah.
Apps to close other apps or block them.
I have on my desktop, there's an app. It's a newsfeed blocker. So you could go to Facebook and you can check your messages. You can see if there's anything trending, but it blocks the newsfeed. So you can't do the scroll. And I wish I could get that on my phone as well, because it's nice because you don't even realize that you're going there. It's become so automatic. So to be able to block it, and then you have to go an extra step. You're like, wait, do I really want this? Or is this just me trying to get that hit of dopamine? So
it's self-mastery really at the highest level. I do believe that, because also, and because we both help people get hired into careers, I will also tell people that they really have this kind of mentality of block every notification, check email once a day. I'm like, throw all that stuff out the window for the job search, and you need to be highly responsive. Turn on all your notifications, immediately reply. Like, so what's your goal? Like if I was working in the news and I was working on a morning show or something, like I'm having all my I need to be the first one to see those articles pop up, but you need to actively choose them. So I would be like, I need to know every notification on LinkedIn. I have a separate email for my job search. Like those notifications are turned on because I know the person that gets to them first will have a better chance of getting hired, period. So yes, you have to choose.
well, it has been a great conversation.
Very good. Thanks,
Thank you
Donna.
so much. Bye-bye.
That was great.